Chapter 2 The Shadow Hotel. It was the morning following his mother's death that Duke realized something might be wrong with his son, Ewan. How about we go for a walk today, Ewan? Hit up downtown. Been a while since we did that, just the two of us, Dad? Shit, nice one, Duke. Let's point out his mother's gone again, why don't we? Sure, Dad, that sounds fine. Great, it's a date. I smiled to my son, a warm feeling inside. The first warm feeling in what feels like years. I look into his eyes, searching for anything remotely close to a father and son bond. He looked straight at me, as if to reciprocate, and yet nothing came to his eyes. An empty light, void of emotion. Or at least if there was emotion, it was beyond Duke's understanding. Or at least if there was emotion, it was beyond Duke's understanding. Or at least it was an emotion he did not wish to face. Son, how are you feeling? I mean, I know it's obvious, but are you alright? Dad? Yes. I'm fine, really. You need not worry so much. Ewan grinned, the slightest a person could grin, but it was there, and it was as dubious as it was assuring to his father. Great, that makes me happy, my son. We'll get through this together. The Burnham boys always do. Duke gave to his son a wholesome smile. This was his way of showing his son what happy looks like. That's all he needs, some guidance from his father, even if everything he had ever learned himself was learned from his dear wife, Elaine. Duke glanced beyond his son, who maintained his grin as he ate his eggs. He was a good boy. Duke was a lesser father. He considered himself blessed that Elaine was around long enough to give his son the love and affection he needed, because now Duke had to teach him how to be a man when all he knew was how to cook eggs and make sandwiches. The portrait of his wife on the wall brought Duke to a place in his mind, a time when they were happy and their son was yet infected by this void. There was a time, it seemed, not so long ago, they could all be happy. His son was around 5. Elaine was as committed to keeping him as she was committed to living in the same town that bore him. He was a product of rape, a product of mishap in a town that gave no shit about justice or balance. She was a victim and no one cared. The world spit her back out as another statistic in a crime spree that warranted no proper investigation. This wasn't like the movies. There wasn't a CSI team performing miracle-enhanced images catching these people. His wife meant true malice that day. It swept in, destroyed her world, and spit her back out as he made his way back into the shadows. And yet in the photograph on the wall, in all their smiles, one would assume that goodness was the dominant entity on earth. Alright, boy, let's get out of here. Ewan nodded, and the two proceeded to the door. The dishes left on the table as the house cat jumped up to finish their half-eaten meals. You've never had a coffee before, have you, son? No. Well, let's get you your first coffee. Today's the day. That grin again, and every time Duke is transported to his wife's deathbed. Elaine, what am I going to do with our boy? The two exited from their basement apartment in a low rental. As they made it outside, Duke could see his neighbor exiting simultaneously. Duke, I saw last night. The ambulances and whatnot. I'm sorry for your loss, you and your boy. Thanks, I guess. Right. Take care, you guys. Ewan put his glasses on. Not that sunny, but he had had enough of his neighbor. He didn't know what they expected him to feel or say to the perpetual mandatory sympathy. She was dead. Gone. Not even dust. She's probably being blown through the chimney stack at the hospital, right? Ewan! Duke watched as his son elicited what looked like true emotion for the first time. He was startled as he took his glasses off. What's wrong, Ewan? Bug in your glasses? Did you say something, Dad? I asked if there was a bug. No, I'm fine. Let's go. Ewan was certain it was his mother's voice he heard. He put on his glasses, and she spoke to him, yelling or even scolding him as if he did something wrong. There was no way Ewan's clockwork logic would allow his mother to break through despite her efforts from the darkness. Whilst on her deathbed, Elaine encountered two forces. One was an overpowering force that commanded her resignation of hope. The other encouraged her to take its side. Elaine, within her mind, ran from the omniscient voice, the overpowering dread. The temptation was there. Somehow, if it weren't for her predisposition to true malice, she ran to the voice that beckoned her with salvation. As if waking from dream to dream, yet never consciously aware, Elaine steadily tried to adapt to the lack of time in the realm that contained the Shadow Hotel. It was even worse when she encountered the strange being that brought her there. They spoke of the darkness she had encountered, and there seemed some history or connection between the being she spoke with and the dreadful voice that attempted to consume her on her deathbed. I need answers. What is all this? Why are you showing me glimpses of my family when you won't even let me talk to them? Is this some game? Very well, I will spill the beans as you humans would have it. The grey blurb showed itself. Elaine was disoriented from trying to adapt to the time distortion. When is this going to end? My head is splitting. That is why I offered to present myself in human avatar. It's not just that. Everything about this place. My head is spinning as if I'm trying to wake up inside a dream. My memory is strange. I can't remember us finished in our last conversation. Oh yes, that time distortion you're feeling is the side effect of residing in your subconscious. It was the only place I could speak with you somewhat coherently. You died, you know. I died. Is this supposed to be the afterlife? The screen in which she was watching her family dissipated. The walls of the hotel lost color. Ugh, my head. Fine, switch to your human imitation. Just fix this distortion before I throw up. Elaine couldn't see him, but knew he was smiling when she said this. As you please. The hallway regained its color. Its lines hardened as she could make out the doors and the moldings around them. When the smoke cleared, Elaine could see a boy standing there, greeting her as if she was an esteemed guest. My name is Tesla 2.0. This, my dear, is the Shadow Hotel. That place in your mind beyond dimensions. A place we can meet and where you can see your dear family again. That is the deal, for Tesla 2.0 is a fair man. Fairest of them all, if I dare say so myself. I don't get it. What's with the name? Well, Elaine, this might be a large pill to swallow, but I am a fan of your species. Not all of you, not even half of you. However, there was one individual who stood out across oceans of time and people, Nikola Tesla. And the 2.0? Well, my kind is like the best of your kind, times 2. Oh, this isn't meant as an insult. It should be a huge compliment since we are the frontier species of reality. How else do you think we're able to have a conversation here, right now in the 4th dimension slip space? Slip space? Yeah, you know, it's not the 4th dimension, but like a pocket between it and your unconscious, sort of like dipping into your deep unconscious, except it's the universe itself. Sure, and what was that just now? I spoke to my son and he heard me. How is that possible? That was an anomaly, most likely remnants of the compound paradox, speaking of which, we are short on time. Do you have any more pressing questions, or can we get back to the task at hand? What is the task at hand? You know that voice you heard when I arrived? Yes. Who or what was that? I know little about him, but I know he's why I'm here, or at least part of why I'm here. He orchestrated the events that led to the disease you were inflicted with. Yes, I remember you saying something about that experiment. Well, as a fan of your species, I've come all the way from the Ursa constellation to help solve this massive headache you've caused in nearly all of reality. Well, you don't think you might be exaggerating a little? No, I think you may not be taking seriously the gravity of the situation. You people created something that makes black holes seem like bad weather. You materialize antimatter, and with that everything is coming apart. The dark flow wasn't supposed to happen until the next universe was born, and now you'll all be reincarnated into pure utter darkness. I'm not sure what you're talking about, but I don't see how I can help. This disease, it's run rampant across several universes already. Your mind cannot fathom how many it has killed, and you know what it has in common? What? It killed all the men. And yet, here at the very place this plague was born, only you have been infected. There must be a reason, a connection or clue to unravel the mysteries behind this plague, or perhaps a solution. And so I built a connection with you, built this hotel so you could stabilize your consciousness. We will retrace every encounter you had with the voice in the dark, and we will trace the source of this plague. Will you help me? And in return, I can stay here and watch over my family? Yes, you can. Fine, I'll do it. Elaine looked at the screen and watched Ewan through the darkness that surrounded him. Within the shadows, she could see him, and sometimes even speak. Ask me whatever you want. Duke and Ewan were getting close to the strip mall in the north end of town. He would have taken us downtown if it weren't for the gas leak in their tank. It was a small leak in a small car, but costly nonetheless. They arrived, parked the car, and even put his sunglasses on as if to perform some experiment. Duke placed a large plastic bowl under the car to catch the leaked fuel, and they went off to get Ewan's first coffee. I always hated that car. Tell me about the events leading to the moment you believe you got infected. Anything strange or out of the ordinary? I don't know. Duke and I were just trying to get by. He was working at the Sobeys down the street, and I got a few shifts at a convenience store. It was near downtown, so a bit of a bike ride, but other than that, nothing strange. I mean, everyone who comes in there at night you could call strange, but no, nothing I can think that would relate to this world-ending business. What about last night? You worked there before you got sick. What sort of customers showed up? There was a house that sold acid across the street. One of them came in and was looking for his cat. I could tell he was tripping, so I told him to leave. A few different people showed up for smoke since we're one of the few 24-hour shops. Some with vehicles, some from the neighborhood. One guy came in, bought toilet paper and a large jug of water and a porno mag, made a joke about it being the essentials or something, and took off. Guess he was the weirdest that night. I've seen much weirder though. What did that last one look like? Young, wore a fancy jacket but looked scruffy, bedhead look and whatnot. His pupils were dilated, and he acted somewhat strange, and yet I couldn't say what he was on. I just don't see how this is going anywhere. You think he created antimatter? Materialized antimatter, and no, I don't think he did it himself, but I think he plays an important role. How do you figure? My associates, who were trying to contain the anomaly, reported everything back to headquarters. We deduced everything that happened within their containment hologram. Containment hologram? I'm sorry, dear, but we must get back to it. Tell me more about this area you worked when you met this scruffy man. Elaine carried on describing the downtown region and the convenience store she worked. However, she couldn't help but notice the monitor where she could see her boy buying his first coffee. She felt a warm sensation towards them both, but was quickly conflicted as she could see Ewan slipping into a state of unease again. What will it be, son? 1 sugar, 1 cream? Sure, Ewan replied. The girl serving them looked to be near Ewan's age, and so Duke couldn't help but do that thing parents do and introduce his son to her. He wanted the shock and sincere smile on Ewan, not that smirk which seemed to have taken him over. His mission was a failure. His son removed his sunglasses, stared at him, and seemed to emit some menacing aura as he introduced himself. When they shook hands, it appeared as if the barista had touched the hand of a corpse. If only a corpse could carry malevolent intent. Let's go, Ewan. Thank you, miss. Duke tipped far too much as he ushered his son out of the doors. He was going to sit down and enjoy the coffees there, but now he wanted to leave, and do so quickly. Duke could see the young girl talking with a co-worker. He knew she was talking about his son, Ewan. Duke Burnham was not an angry man, but when he thought about the barista talking ill of his son, a rage came out of nowhere, and in seconds was overwhelming. Ewan could feel a sense of release, as if the rage his father felt was siphoning that same raw emotion from his son. He felt free for a moment, and he went to his father's aid as he seemed winded by the time they arrived at the car. Sorry, son, I don't know what came over me. Duke composed himself, and as he did so, the rage turned back into stillness. And as it did, it was like ice turning to water, except the ice was hatred and water was still darkness as it poured back into Ewan. His momentary freedom from himself was over. Elaine could see this on the monitor while she explained Archibald Street, the street she worked on the night of her infection. What was that just now? Duke was angry, and Ewan looked like he was sincerely happy in the first time for ever. It's been an anomaly after another with you people in this town. I don't know. We haven't discovered the connection between your family and the events at Harper's Lane. Harper's Lane? Yes, Harper's Lane was the genesis of the disturbance. It's where my associates recorded the first anomaly, and it's only a few streets away from where you worked. But why my son? What is wrong with him? He's always been not the happiest child, but he was happy. I haven't seen him like that. I can't remember when I saw him smile, real smile or laugh. Why can't I remember my baby boy's laughter? Darkness starts in the foreign dimensions as it pours its way into your home dimensions. Your memory is placed in a faraway landscape, not committed to this reality. And as so, the light from your life will dampen as we uncover the truth. It is a side effect of getting closer to the voice in the dark. Does this horror show have no end? None that I can see, especially if we don't figure this out. Very well. What next? Tell me about your doctor, the one who prescribed you the compound paradox. Dr. Ulrich? Yes, Dr. Ulrich. I'm not sure what I can tell you. My head was at its worst when I met him. I walked into the room. I couldn't even see his face, like a twisted cartoon covered in such a dense black fiery aura. I thought it was one episode, but he talked and his human face would come out of black fire. Only thing was that his face was even more horrible than the fire itself. But like I said, my mind was not right. I can't tell you anything other than what I was hallucinating. Do not worry yourself, Elaine. You were inflicted with something related to the compound paradox, although it's not the plague itself. Perhaps now you share a link with the root of this darkness. This I am still uncertain. However, I am sure this man plays an important role, and I don't think that's a good thing. A fear crept up like a small spider on her spine. She had enough of this talk of pure evil and darkness beyond darkness. Why couldn't things be simple? Even after her life fell apart because of that incident, ancient books and wisdoms guided her to a path of clarity. and now it had all come undone. She was part of some grand experiment that dealt with matters she would never understand. One thing brought her comfort, and that was knowing from this shadowy hallway, this hotel, she could watch over her son like she had always intended. Duke had poured the gas into the jerry can and was finishing pouring it into the car when he got the call. It was Dia. He had just calmed himself from his strange fit of anger only a moment ago, and now anxiety spread across like tiny needles flowing throughout his veins. How? Why now? This couldn't have been what Elaine meant. Hello? Mr. Burnham? Yes. Dia, it's me. Yes, Dia, it's me. Duke, I heard about your wife, Elaine. I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you. Duke could see Ewan had returned to his normal self. He was sitting in the car waiting, but still looking at his glasses for that bug. Can I ask what this is about? Listen, Duke, we've reopened the Horseman Project. My director just isn't doing it. I need someone with experience in this field. I need someone who can cast aside their petty egoisms, to become humble despite impulses, to be creative while aroused. And yet, I need this to be a man. This is your calling, Duke. No. Dia, I told you. I would never get back on that set, and especially for the Horseman. The world isn't ready. I'm not ready. Duke, take some time to think. I'll have an associate contact you in a day's time. Give Ewan my regards. Do what you like. Duke hangs up the phone and leans his head back on the car. Overwhelmed by the needles. Inside the car, he could see his son looking at him. He's smiling, but he can sense warmth within it. This warmth that Duke noticed provided solace within the father's own worried heart, and as he did so, the sandglass of despair tilted upright. The smirk remained the same, but the air around him seemed to disappear into a vacuum. The abyss had wandered back. Who was that, Dad? Duke was exhausted before he could answer the question. An old co-worker, or boss, rather, from when you were still a baby. When you were a writer? Writer? Is that what your mother told you? Well, I guess I was. I wrote less near the end, though. I don't know. I guess you're old enough to know. Know what? Well, you see, son, this isn't exactly a child-friendly subject, but since you're my son, and you're getting to the age anyways, I figure I might as well tell you. Just promise not to tell anyone at school, alright? Or, tell no one at all. Can you promise me that, Ewan? Sure, Dad. What is it? I used to write for the movies, and then I would write and direct. I made a name for myself among certain niche communities, but after you were born, I quit so I could be around you guys more often. You made movies? Yes, but not just any movies. Dad? Dad! Alright, son, for Christ's sake, I wrote pornography. The car went quiet. Duke grunted, put on his seatbelt, and started the engine. They drove when finally he continued. They called me, my old boss did. They want me to come back to work. Isn't that what Mom wanted? Yes. You heard? Yes. I don't know what she meant by that. I can't bring myself to believe it was for this. But then Dia called, and I can make no sense of it. Is Dia your boss? Yes, well, we started off as partners, but I met Elaine and my passion just sort of went there. To your mom. Dia was such a driven person to begin with. Things turned out the way they were supposed to, I think. How much money did you make? Straight to the point, aren't you, son? Well, I made a lot, but I sold the last of my shares a long time ago when we started having money troubles. Duke could tell Ewan had more to say, and yet he remained silent, as if to spare his father's feelings. They pulled into a parking lot, and this time as if Duke timed it perfectly to change the subject. Where are we? I figured the house could use some new music. Fill it out a little. We have an old record player in the storage room. What do you say we dust it off and try your first record on it? Yeah, Dad, that sounds fine. Fine, yeah. Let's go. Inside, records were stacked like books in a library. They ranged from the 50s and 60s to present, and priced from 25 cents to $100. Duke hadn't seen a record store since he was making films. That was their thing. They would play these custom-picked records to play with their movies, which itself was shot on the classic Super 8 cameras. Find something, son? As Duke said this, the shop clerk approached his son. Can I help you find, sir? I don't know. Do you have any suggestions? Asked Ewan. So happy you asked, young man. Follow me this way. Over here you'll see we have a wall made purely of staff choices. Here you can see my selection. Modest Mouse and my favorite album, We Were Dead Before the Ship Sank. It says your name is Mouse. Oh, you caught me. Trust me, young man, you will love them. All set, Ewan. Duke approached from behind as he tried to save his son from this odd character. He was here a long time ago with Elaine. They checked it out soon after she worked at the convenience store not too far away. An awful sound pierces Duke's ears. Not that it was a horrible sound, but it was the sound of a traumatic familiarity as his debit card was declined. Shit. Let me run to the car real quick. I have cash in the cubby. Duke was embarrassed. His chest heated up. Sweat began to pour. He wiped his hands on his pants before opening the car door, which was locked. Shit. Goddamn motherfucker. Duke cursed the door. He cursed the gas, which he now noticed was leading a trail away from the gas tank where it belonged. He got around town with just $10 easy, or at least would have been easy. He thought to himself as he grabbed his last bill and some change from the car's cubby space. His son needed this. We'll figure it out, Duke thought to himself. Dad, I'm going to work here. What? Sweet shock and surprise instantly cured the anger and anxiety. I've been talking to Mouse here. He said he could use some help on the weekends. Mouse was nodding his head in approval behind the counter, his arms crossed and relaxed. Son, you don't need to get a job. Look, I have the money here. I just needed to go to the car. It's okay, Dad. Like you said, I'm getting older. You trust me with what you said. I just want to do my part. Duke broke down in tears as he replied, Sure, son. Thank you, sir. Have a great day. Mouse continued to nod as Duke put his arm around his son as to motivate him to leave the store. Oh, good sirs. Your record. Mouse rushed up behind them. Duke didn't realize how tall he was, and he had a perfume on that seemed to itself smell of dusty records. Thanks again. Mouse, was it? Mm-hmm. That's right, call me Mouse. These are my peeps, and this is my house. Mouse did a small, elaborate routine as he presented himself with the store. Duke gave him the money in exchange for the record placed in a brown paper bag. Give you a call later, Ewan. Out of nowhere, the music could be heard coming in behind the desk as Mouse was walking towards it. Strange, I thought he was alone. What? Ewan replied. Nothing, let's catch the bus today. Sure, Dad, but can I suggest something? What's that, Ewan? We should go back to work. You too, huh? Duke spaced out as he stared into the shadow of the car where the gas was making its escape. Is this what she wanted, Elaine? For him to go back to that despicable scene full of lust and violence? Not that pornography itself was evil, it was the direction Dia was going with it. She was always a strange woman, but she was very motivated in her purpose. He thought she hated men, had bad experiences, and devoted her life to revenge, but it wasn't the case. It was almost as if she wanted all the men of mankind to redeem themselves. However, her means for redemption scared him, if it was redemption she wanted. Elaine, if only you could give me a sign. Idiot, he's asking for a sign when you literally told him go back to work. Elaine hits the young fancy-dressed entity across the head as he cursed her husband. As she did so, his form lost hold of the avatar, and his shadowy gray self appeared while he cried in pain. Before he could scold her actions, she had moved on to her next train of thought. That reminds me, why do you want him to go back to work at that place anyways? I'm not sure how I feel about guiding my widowed husband to a porno set. Seems like a waste of life in the afterlife. And why do you even feel pain? Ugh, you humans can be so frustrating. The avatar felt pain, not me. Look at it like translation, and your husband needs to go back to work there because I have an associate who runs the place. Associate? You mean Dia? Yes, Dia. What about her? How do you know her? She, too, is a long-term admirer of the great Nikola Tesla. How long-term? Elaine said, although deep inside she didn't want to know. Oh, calm down. She made a trade through ancient pagan systems. You wouldn't understand. You were into the New Age nuance. You mean the Holy Bible? Holy, Elaine. It isn't even a classic. Before Elaine could retort in the disgust prepared towards his blasphemy, a large, warm wind blew through the shadowy hallways. The wind carried a deep, dark laughter as a voice followed. I found you, 2.0. The voice itself seemed to augment the gravity as Elaine was brought to her knees. When she looked to her side, the boy was gone. Just the gray-skinned shadow, as he called it. Elaine, we're out of time. Too much time with the light on. We'll pick up this later. Sleep tight. Elaine couldn't focus on anything but the seething pain, as if the skin was about to fall off her knees from the homicidal gravity. When she finally raised her head, she could see a flash as the Shadow Hotel collapsed upon her. But before the lights went out, and she entered the slumber that ensued, she caught a glimpse of a form, so black and void of color, she could make out only a silhouette amongst the shadows. And then the dark. From outside the shadows, even the Burnham boys could feel that sensation of fear. That sense of helplessness when Elaine witnessed the ominous entity. Dad, yes, son, is everything, fine? Ewan asked as if he had just learned how, for the first time in his life, to admit vulnerability. It was this moment that a fiery explosion of hope, love, and motivation struck Duke Burnham. He would not allow himself to cry. Not this time. He was angry, but in a happy way. He felt like he was the blue flame that burnt the hottest yet gentle like the warmth of the sun. Duke pulled out his cell phone. He wasn't sure if the thing even had money on it. He texted anyways. The threat of digital monetary rejection held no sway over him now. Text. Dia, it's me. I'm in. Duke looks at his boy with a smile. Believe it.